Well, we got a new plot leak for Morbius, and it's more than a little interesting. Let's take a couple minutes to break down this plot leak, talk about what's in there, and whether we think this is actually legit. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Comic Book Nostalgia. I'm CB Nostalgia, and I got a little plot leak for Morbius for you. But first, don't forget to get in on the giveaway. We're giving away a copy of JLA 1 Million. In order to get in on the giveaway, all you have to do is be a subscriber, hit like, and leave a comment. Well guys, we're a few months out from Morbius hitting theaters, and we've only gotten one trailer. But yesterday, we got a pretty interesting plot leak over on Reddit. Now, this was posted to the Marvel Studios spoilers page, and since then has been, and I quote, confirmed. Now, I don't know what that means, but it is still from Reddit, and we've got no official confirmation, but it's more than a little interesting, and I thought you might like it, so let's break it down. Now, we're going to break it down as it's posted on Reddit, and there's a lot of cut to, so I wanted to preface that a little bit. The guy also says he can't reveal who he is, and he has to protect his identity to keep his job. Which kind of makes sense, but if it's not true, it feeds it awfully conveniently. In any case, let's break down the leak. Like the trailer, the film opens with Michael Morbius being awarded the Nobel Prize for his involvement in medical research. During the acceptance speech, he actually faints. The film cuts to black and then cuts to Michael as a young boy at a school being bullied because he can't walk. This is broken up by Emo Nikos, played by Jared Harris, who is actually a doctor working at the school. The film then cuts to an adult Michael Morbius having a discussion with Nikos, explaining that his disease is getting worse and he suspects he doesn't have long to live. He also thanks Nikos for sticking with him throughout his life. Now, we cut back to a young Michael Morbius in a hospital ward playing chess against Nikos. Nikos encourages Michael to pursue becoming a doctor and finding a cure for his disease. Nikos is then told he has to see another patient, and Michael continues to play chess by himself. Not really sure why this part is in there, unless they're suggesting it's Matt Smith's character, which we'll get to in a second. The film then cuts to Michael in a hospital helping a young girl who has cancer. He then goes to take his own medication. He's stopped by Matt Smith's character, which I believe is pronounced Loxias Crown, who Morbius does not know. Crown gives him a briefcase and a card, and he tells Michael this may help him find a cure. The film then cuts to Michael being injected with medication by his wife, Maureen Bancroft. During the scene, Michael once again explains how he doesn't suspect he has very long left on this world. Michael and Bancroft walk to their lab. Michael says he needs to try more radical ways to cure himself. He then opens a briefcase. Inside the briefcase, he finds a dead bat and a giant knife. Well, it looks more like a machete. Michael is confused but studies the bat and finds out it's a vampire bat, but nothing else. Once his wife leaves, Michael calls Crown and asks him about the artifacts. Crown explains that he once suffered from the same disease as Morbius and tells him about a cave in Brazil. Michael then tells Bancroft he needs to go to this cave so he can be cured, but Bancroft warns against it, and of course, Michael doesn't listen. Cut to Michael in a helicopter on his way to the cave. The voiceover from Crown while this is happening, explaining what Michael has to do. Once he arrives, he pays everyone off, some kind of machine opens up from the ground, and Michael cuts his hand and presses it against the strings within the machine. Bats fly towards his hand and then outside of the cave, killing everyone else in the helicopter, and Michael passes out. The film cuts to black. Michael wakes up and he wanders Brazil for a bit before he sneaks into a cargo ship headed back to New York. He is hiding and shivering, and he is slowly transforming into a vampire. He also eats a live rat. The ship is then attacked by pirates, and this is the film's first real actual action scene. First, Morbius kills the pirates. Throughout the scene, he's obscured by shadows, or it's kind of a point of view shot so you don't really get a good look at him. The leaker says it actually reminded him of the Alien franchise, which I found pretty interesting. We get a good look at him at the end of the scene, and it's actually that shot from the trailer that we saw. Morbius then jumps off the ship and starts swimming to shore. He eventually makes his way back to New York and is not too sure what happens. He crawls into a bar and tells the bartender to call him an ambulance. During the scene, he actually looks up at the TV and sees J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah Jameson talking about dead bodies found on a cargo ship. At this point, Michael starts to get some flashbacks. An ambulance arrives and he is rushed to the hospital, and he works and tells everyone that he was mugged and his crutches were stolen. But once he's in the lab, he tells Bancroft and Nikos what really happened and locks himself in containment to protect them from him. Eventually, his thirst for blood becomes too strong and he breaks out. Bancroft and Nikos escape, but he runs after them and is shot by a security guard. Bancroft then injects Morbius with something and he's knocked out. Michael wakes up in a lab and finds a tome there. There's a note and it says, "All answers you seek lie within. Loxias." He actually opens this up and finds a skeleton wearing a comic-accurate Morbius costume, which he laughs at. The tomb is also covered in some ancient languages Michael doesn't know about, but somehow is able to read it. Now at this point we get introduced to Simon Stroud, played by Tyrese Gibson, who is investigating the death of the pirates. Simon believes something supernatural caused it, to which everybody else pretty much laughs him away. They also mentioned that he has a mechanical gauntlet, and according to the leaker, it was actually made by Oscorp. So this will be the first time Oscorp has been seated in this line of Spider-Man films. At this point, we get a little bit of a montage of Michael testing out his abilities, a lot of what we see in the trailers. Now, during the investigation, Simon eventually visits Nikos and starts asking him questions about Michael. Meanwhile, Lox's crown is in some sort of lab in the sewers and is revealed to be incredibly skinny and has tattoos all over his body. He also at this point collapses. The movie cuts to the tomb in Michael's lab and it's opening itself up. The skeleton in it starts to fight Morbius. This is the best scene in the movie just because of how incredibly bonkers it is according to the leaker. Morbius eventually defeats it by crushing the skull, and then the skeleton's costume attaches itself to Morbius. Loxius wakes up at this point and casts some kind of magic spell himself. He then walks over to the train track, stops the train, and uses some weird magic to suck the life out of every person in the train, returning himself to look like a normal Matt Smith, kind of like a vampiric rejuvenation. So at this point, Loxius senses that Simon Stroud is going to ruin his plan, so he possesses Morbius and flies him over to Nico's house to kill Stroud. Stroud is able to fight and defeat Morbius because he's possessed, and once he snaps out of it, Michael allows him to arrest him. At this point, he's sent to San Quentin prison. This is where we get the Adrian Toomes scene in the trailer. And Toomes actually makes a joke that he got blipped, so he technically got a shorter sentence, which made me say, During the night, Michael sees Lox's crown in some sort of ghost form and tells Michael to meet him in New York or he'll kill his wife. Michael builds up the power and breaks out of the prison while floating and being surrounded by bats. This somehow leads to all the electricity in the prison getting cut off and a riot ensues. Everyone in the prison escapes. And this is where it gets a little interesting in the Sonyverse. Adrian Toomes climbs out of his prison cell while Michael uses his powers against the guards and steals a coat from one of them. According to the leak, he thanks Michael for breaking him out and actually offers him to join his team, but Michael refuses. Apparently, we also see Matt Gargan, played by Michael Mando, aka the Scorpion, who meets up with Toomes, and Cletus Cassidy, Woody Harrelson, also make an appearance here, meaning we have several members of that Sinister Six movie actually escaping during Morbius. More than a little interesting. Now at this point, Morbius finds Lox's crown in New York, who reveals the skeleton was once him, and he's a reincarnation and needs Morbius to complete the ritual so he can live forever, aka the Papa Palpatine story. Morbius' costume forms around him and he ends up fighting Loxus. Apparently they're mostly flying during this final fight, and he said it reminded him a lot of the end of Chronicle. Eventually Morbius is able to defeat Crown by reading one of his tattoos, which allows him to suck the life out of Crown. Morbius then grows until he's 9 foot tall and starts roaring at everyone, but Bancroft eventually calms him down and he turns back into a normal Michael again. Michael then makes his escape and takes off the costume. And on the way, he runs past the poster of Spider-Man tagged Murderer. But this has been changed from the trailer according to the leaker and is now the Spider-Man Homecoming version of Spider-Man, aka Tom Holland, and not the one with the Raimi suit. The film ends with Michael and Bancroft at Nico's funeral, while Stroud watches them in the distance. It cuts to Morbius jumping across New York City, with the final shot being a billboard showing Peter Parker with a sign reading, "Wanted." Apparently, there's no end credit sequence. Now, let's talk about this for a second, because I like a lot of what I hear, but parts of it do bother me. Literally, the first 8 or 9 bullet points of this almost go beat for beat to the trailer. If you watch the trailer and read the Reddit leak, which I linked below, it's easy to see. So I don't feel too comfortable about that. It could be pure coincidence or how the trailer played out, I don't know. The second half of the movie sounds pretty ambitious, but I will say this. It sounds a lot like Sony. Moving that many pieces into place was really kind of what moved Amazing Spider-Man off the ranch, but maybe they've nailed it down right here. In any case, these villains have been introduced slowly, so I imagine acceptance will be a little higher. Nobody likes an overstuffed movie. If I'm a betting man, I would say this leak is probably mostly true. We don't know, and obviously we don't have any confirmation, but there was so many great details in here, and it was so specific that I thought it felt like it was pretty genuine. Obviously in a couple months, we'll know the movie will be out, but I'm really curious on what you think of this story breakdown and plot leak. Are you going to still see Morbius after hearing this plot leak? What do you think of all the villains? And what do you think of a comic-accurate costume actually making it into the film? That actually makes me excited. Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you press like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you won't get any updates. Peace.